जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम नैयर साहब।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, आवाज आ रही मेरी?
जी आ रही है।
हेलो टू एवरीबॉडी।
अच्छा जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम एंड वेलकम टू आवर इंटर्नशिप प्रोग्राम, जहां हमारे साथ कोई 14 के करीब इंटर्न ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं मुख्तलिफ स्कूल से इस्लामाबाद पिंडी के। और हमारी ये बड़ी इज्जत अफजाई है कि आज आपने हमारे लिए टाइम निकाला। और सब जानते हैं हमारे बैठे हुए स्टूडेंट्स के आगा खान अवार्ड आपको मिल चुका है, हिलाल इम्तियाज आपको मिल चुका है, अलहमरा जैसी आपकी क्रिएशन है। सो बहुत शुक्रिया नैयर साहब ज्वाइन करने का। और मैं आपसे चाहूंगा कि आप अपनी प्रेजेंटेशन या टॉक ये बच्चे क्या हैं अभी अब निकलने वाले फ्यूचर आर्किटेक्ट्स हमारे हैं, आप अपना एक जहन, अपनी सोच और जो अल्लाह ताला ने आपको जहां तक पहुंचाया है हमारी फील्ड में, जितना आप शेयर करना चाहें, वी विल बी गुड लिसनर्स फॉर दैट। सो द माइक इज गिवन टू यू, यू कैन स्टार्ट।
सारा काम इसमें कवर हो जाता है। डिस्कशन गुप्तता शिकोर से है, तो मेरे पास 5, 6, 7 रिकॉर्डिंग पूरी थी। आई पिक दैट अप because that will इसमें सारी concept of my thoughts on architecture and my work is also covered in. तो मैं अगर वो मेरा ख्याल है on कर दूं तो I think that will become आधे घंटे की टॉक।
बहुत उम्दा, बिल्कुल जी।
It's a brief thing, but it has visuals
जी।
which will communicate the
और
character of
जी जब वो खत्म हो जाएगी आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन तो आर स्टूडेंट्स वुड लाइक टू इंटरैक्ट विद यू, Q&A होगा।
तो वो फिर मैं shall I put it on?
जी प्लीज डू, प्लीज आप स्टार्ट कीजिए।
करना चाहें तो कर।
नैयर साहब आप स्टार्ट कीजिए।
उसे लगेगी
हाँ ठीक है बिल्कुल। हाँ यहाँ से वहाँ जी ठीक है जी। माइक।
Nayyar Ali Dada is known and recognized as an iconic architect of Pakistan. Dada received his architectural education from the National College of Arts in 1965. He is one of the most celebrated architects of the country. His work has won many national awards, including President's Pride of Performance and Sitara Imtiaz. Amongst international awards are the Aga Khan Award for Architecture, the Arcasia Gold Medal, and the Kenneth Brown Citation from University of Hawaii. He started his career by teaching as a lecturer in the National College of Arts, and today he is one of the most successful world-renowned architects of Pakistan.
Architecture is a very complex profession, and the complexity of this profession is reflected in the complexity of my own career as well. That it has not been very easy, and the evolution has taken place as an exercise in time and space, mostly related to the city of Lahore, where I have lived all my life. And there are two facets of impacts and influences on an architect's career. One is that of the professional side of architecture, technology, development, and all these factors. The others are sensitivities of the city's existence in history as to how the city grows with time and how your work is affected by your travel in time and space. So I have somehow been exposed to the influences of modernism. My education took place in a very modern, revolutionary institute of newly founded National College of Arts by Professor Spangenberg and other Fulbright professors who came from Europe and United States. And we were molded in that sort of a philosophy of how the world has come forward and has rejected all the uh, decorative and classical ideals of architecture in the past. And I grew in that environment and learned a lot from there. These were the great period of 60s where modernism was at its zenith and I was beginning to learn architecture in College of Arts. But at the same time, the Mayo School of Arts, the traditional craft school, was dying away, but it was leaving its imprints on the city of Lahore. And my own work also goes along with it. And I was very lucky having my exposure to the best of modernists in that time in architectural education. But from there onwards, my career did not stop developing from the factors of various influences, in which I thought that this is modernist work, and I started with an auditorium made in College of Arts in raw shutterboard concrete, which was something modern even for that times. It was ahead of time for 60s to be able to produce a building like that, and I was able to do that building, and it was a very successful statement because it delivered what was required of that building, and it had its presence, and it was technologically an achievement. But even after a success like that, I was not happy with the modern work that I was doing. And this was because of various influences that I absorbed from my surroundings, my teachers like Professor Shakir Ali, and then the environment around his friends like Intezar Hussain, and painters of that time, poets. I was luckily close to Faiz Ahmad Faiz and his family. Salima studied with me in the College of Arts. So this 60s intellectual brilliance of Pakistan, which was short-lived, unfortunately. I was also absorbing impact from these, and they formed my thinking of architecture as well. And I felt a little guilty when I was making architecture, which was apparently smart architecture, with modern forms, modern materials, and buildings mostly dominated by functionalism and of logic of modern times. But I felt that architecture is also a part of culture. And architecture is supposed to produce heritage for tomorrow. It somehow, I thought, should carry a sense of continuity and a sense of identity with the times and the place where you're producing your buildings. So then I remained a modern architect, and my practice and my designs were basically contemporary. But these influences somehow modified my format, and I moved from a modernist, brutalist, shutterboard concrete building to building of Alhambra Arts Council, which was modern, minimalist but was carrying materials from the place. The forms were not inspired from Gropius and Corbu or Western architecture, but maybe not deliberately, but my admiration for buildings like Rukn Alam and the walls of Lahore Fort may have contributed. I don't know. Consciously, it was not adopted. But this building belongs to Lahore, and it belongs to modern times, and it delivers the purpose for which it was built. This building has enriched the art and culture scene of Pakistan, Punjab and Lahore in a great manner. It has produced work of artists, of performing art people. And so a building's test is its success of its usage. When you want to measure the quality of a building, you don't, I think, listen to critics, or you see the response of the people. That when this building looks okay, but when it is full with people, then the real response can be calculated and can be weighed as to how a building responds to people, or how people respond to a building. If you put that to test, this building is a success. And it was recognized by getting the Aga Khan Award for it. But then this travelogue of mine found a direction, and that direction was trying to do architecture which was contemporary, which was modern, which was functional in its own manner, but inspired by the romance of a city which carries remarkable history and heritage of pre-Mughal, Mughal, British, Sikh, and then the colonial period.
Stop out tapping. That's trading.
What is important is that the building, I don't like cities like Shanghai, or which are considered remarkable developments, which have no connection with the history or culture. It's all reflection of progress of science and technology and economy. Most concepts drafted by economists, bureaucrats, and politicians. People who are left out in thinking of cities, which is hopefully being realized now, is that there can be a participation by social scientists, by thinking people like people from literature, short story writers, poets, musicians. And the basis of music and architecture at times overlap. And I have found that buildings can have lyrical quality, and buildings can be called, they can have a sort of a rhythm which is common with music. And all this sort of thinking that comes to my mind is because of my inspiration from my good luck of being exposed by people around me like Shakir Ali, Faiz Ahmed Faiz, Professor Sponenberg. But I don't believe in dogmas or fixed things. This is an age of freedom. The idea is to absorb what is good, bracketing that modern things are better than traditional, or traditional things are better. You can't have such fixed thinking. At times, some modern building can resonate with the wisdom of past. It's reflected in some buildings like Ronsham by Lee Kabu is an extremely modern building, but it carries the chapel's mystique traditional values. You know, I find a lot of traditional buildings remarkably modern in their expression. They are minimalist. What I believe is that you should be inspired and dictated by the formats around you of ripples of the past, but they have to be validated. I don't believe in using cliches of by inspired is being something else, but to imitate is pastiche and is ordinary and is bad. So we find that there is a problem with the extremities here in our architectural practice in Pakistan. The traditionalists want to make their buildings look like, use jharokas and jalis and cliches like that, and they take pride in producing that is a style which belongs to the soil. It's not true. The other thing is that the modernists do not believe in, they call it retrogressive, and they just follow the logic of function and engineering wisdom of technology, and they make these glass boxes and contemporary buildings. 9 out of 10 are based on this format. So I personally, I do not agree with the both. And at the same time, there are no formulas. There can't even be a khichdi of modern. It's very difficult to explain, but it is possible to do buildings which resonate with the past without imitating it, and buildings which remain contemporary, honest to the use of modern materials and modern technology. So that's the challenge that I have tried to capture, and mostly, I must admit, mostly failed to do it. Very few buildings that can be called good, really. The dogmas of styles or what is appropriate. The other thing which has come up is that architecture is not just a creative art. It is also a matter of getting involved with the social responsibility of architecture being produced, because cities are places for human existence. They are not just to look at how good they look and how culturally relevant they are. And its architecture's relevance to culture is one thing, but its relevance to nature is most important. Because most cities that we are developing are disasters for ecology. That we are not producing buildings and then cities which are taking care of human health. look at climate change, and when we reach the finest time of human progress within 100 years after revolution, the Industrial Revolution, progress of 1,000 times is nowhere near these 100 years where we produce this technological, remarkable Industrial Revolution. But at the same time, that was the time when we planted the seeds of human disaster for future in form of climate change and fluorocarbon and pollution of seas and pollution of air, and the endangered problems of climate change which are coming in our way. It's a reality now. So what the human mind needs to learn is progress is remarkable, it's human achievement, it's a genius of the mankind. But he forgets, the human being, that he's not, the superpowers are not this. There is another superpower which needs to be respected, which is the Creator. And he has created the balance of the universe. And that balance should be, once it's forgotten, then the disasters emerge from our own progress and technology. So this balancing act now, the awareness has come in, and town planners and architects and then the writers and poets, and they're all getting together and learning about the disasters of the future. This one factor is added in architecture. One is aesthetic, what will be appropriateness or smartness. The other is morality. Architecture has also to carry a sense of morality, that what we are doing is also human friendly and is not dictates of rich clients' stupid adventures and making smart modern buildings, but also to see what we are doing to this place, to this space, what we are doing to nature, and what we are doing to the environment. So it becomes more and more complex and difficult. But at the same time, this sense of freedom and dialogue hopefully is creating enrichment in thought. And I see that people who are my juniors, or they are more fertile in their thinking and imagination. And building, they're not considering buildings to be made to as attractive elevation making or interior design. It is building carry character. It's like human beings. Certain being has a character of this kind. You know, you call of the talk of a character of a person. The building can also be spoken in the same terms. A building has a character, and it can be subtle. It can be loud. It can be opulent, it can be, you know. So this sensitivity, this training of sensitivity cannot come by learning engineering disciplines or technical disciplines alone. I think the exposure of architects to the finer sides of life, like that of music, literature and poetry, was something. I remember Lionel Kipling writing to the Viceroy, "Sir, we are sending our designs to be built and not considering that the local expertise is zero, is no good." It's not correct. I have been going around and I see a lot of sense of creativity in places like Oriental College in Lahore. And I find, the people like Bhai Ram Singh and Sir Gangaram, who are remarkable in engineering and creative crafts. So why not sit with them and have a dialogue and create a hybrid expression which is appropriate for our rule and appropriate for the natives as well.
Get your domain today at GoDaddy. Ready to take your idea on?
the problem is also as to how the city is kept, you know. And now, luckily, by the grace of God, I'm trying to make my humble contribution. I'm involved on the board of College of Arts, the Alhambra Arts Council, the Walled City, and as custodians of cities, civility is one word that I would keep very high in my aims. That civility is one word that can be applied to environment and to urban quality of the cities. It's not glamour and grandeur alone that you have polished cities like Shanghai, and the cities can be civilized in their simplicity and can be called good. Like if you talk of Fez, Fez is like a village, but it's so beautiful out of its simplicity. So at times opulence corrupts, but the only word which stands true to today's condition, and that is something that I have to accept is the rule today, is this word of pluralism. You see, because the modern world, the complexity of factors are surrounding all issues, and the approach to a pluralist attitude is the only way to proceed. Because if you become dogmatic or slaves of a certain philosophies, it may or may not work. Like technology, you say, I don't agree with it, you can't throw it away. It's something that is not appropriate and not practical. At the same time, say, why be old-fashioned and look at the past and all, dispose it off. So none of these are disposable. So what happens is that you validate what is appropriate for the times, for the place, and you follow the logic of what is correct, appropriate for aesthetic appropriateness is one, and the factor of morality is another one. And so all these factors formulate directions in architecture. Now, the biggest disaster is the condition of practice, the professional side of architecture, the way jobs are allotted, the way the fees are paid, the way the buildings are supervised and made. If you do the right deliver services, you end up paying double your fee to finish the job. Nobody wants to pay the architects the appropriate fee. The system of practice, of supervision, allotment is an absolute disaster, and it is because of the state of corruption in the field of construction. Practices in Pakistan, as everybody knows, corruption has been a major factor in the governance of our recent times. And the most corrupt side of our economy has been construction. Building of roads, buildings of structures, the elements of corruption and commission. And also the engineering side needs to be pepped up in terms of first technology, that most syllabi is outdated. We have not caught up with modern materials and modern techniques. And the system of practice of tendering and then payment of bills to the contractors. And this system, if it is not reviewed, quality of construction environment cannot be achieved. The awareness has come up rather well as to what architectural education should be. The problem with architectural education is that we are in recent times We have had too many institutions coming up without appropriate backup of faculty and space available. Though the direction in architectural training is getting better, the elements of social responsibility and awareness of ecology and environment is creeping into architectural syllabus, which is very good. But our problem is the game of numbers, where the quality is suffering because of that. We need to do that to regulate quality and go for not go for numbers.
ये है कहानी उस उभरते सितारे की जिसकी धुन पर
My message is that keep this sense of dialogue between old and new and produce architecture with solutions which are appropriate. But I don't believe in producing smart, you can call it smart cities, they call it modern cities, which are nameless, faceless, could be anywhere. There are photographs of cities which I can show you. You can't tell me whether it's Cairo or it is Tehran or it is Karachi. That, I think, is a tremendous loss that has taken place in the modern world. That where will be tourism if all the cities are the same? Why will people go and travel and go and try to look Siena or Sardinia if they look like something in Karachi? Or this sense of identity and continuity is something, and the sense of freedom. The dialogue, there are no formulas. There was time when you see there were exact rules to be followed for good architecture. The rules of proportion and scale and all will always remain there. My gurus like Faiz Saab and Shakir, there was a Art in Arts Council which produced, which was the fountainhead of Pakistan's art and culture, that produced people like Zia Boyuddin, Kamal Ahmad Rizvi, Feroz Nizami, great music director, Shakir Saab, Ustad Allah Bakhsh, Chughtai, Dr. Anwar Sajjad, all Naeem Tahir, Yasmin, all these guys, and out of that canteen, out of the dialogue between them, okay, was created very good theatre, drama, and an art scene. Inspired from there, I made a humble small setup where we have a congregation of all these disciplines, and it was started by our original guru Intizar Hussain, and then followed by others like Shahzad Ahmed, Munu Bhai, and now, by the grace of God, Mr. Ayyar Rahman heads our setup there.
To you for your presentation, the slides, the पोएट्री
डाल दिए इसमें, हाँ
जी
सर।
बहुत उम्दा बहुत उम्दा। अब ये हमारे स्टूडेंट्स कुछ आपसे सवालात करना चाह रहे हैं।
Poetry and all this I have not learned from any textbook or any not part of my education in architecture. This comes in intuitively if you're a person of that kind who reads poetry or who has an exposure to people around where you can absorb these things and they come intuitively. I can't give you a program that how to infuse poetry or inspiration of heritage into your architecture. This is something which cannot be taught, and it should come. It comes if your general education, which is not there in our country, where when we prepare students for graduation up to masters, उन लोगों के अंदर हमारी अपनी चीज़ों का कोई एक्सपोजर और वो नहीं, मतलब अब तो खैर ये यूट्यूब वगैरह से बड़ा वैल्यूएबल स्टफ इज अवेलेबल, बट आज से 10 साल पहले मीर का दीवान लाहौर में मैं लेने गया तो अवेलेबल नहीं था, ये आउट ऑफ प्रिंट आउट कोई बिकता ही नहीं है वगैरह वगैरह। तो ये हमारी थोड़ी सी bankruptcy of our exposure to culture, to our own culture, and for that matter, international culture. अब ये मैं समझता हूँ things will change because at a click, I had a collection of 3,000 recordings of around 40s and 30s, which I thought was a rare museum piece. After a few months, I said you should burn all this. This is useless because on YouTube, with one click, I can get Jaddan by 1940. So you people are very lucky that you are in a period where there is exposure of everything which you can intelligently absorb and then reflect in your work. इसका एक बड़ा ambience रहा है शुरू से, तो उसमें when you are learning architecture, you are surrounded by fellow students who do ceramics. The other department is that of textiles, of fine arts. So automatically ये सारी चीजें जो है ना, मतलब आर्किटेक्चर से फिर टेक्नोक्रेटिक स्कूल में हो तो you are not exposed to sculpture and ceramics. So you can be a good architect and be very well trained. मगर ये जो इंडायरेक्ट सी एब्जॉर्प्शन आती है ना, वो मैंने देखा है कॉलेज ऑफ आर्ट्स के अंदर में। आई हैड a specific advantage of later on being friendly with my teacher and became a colleague and then a friend, Shakir Ali. And if they were surrounded by people like Intizar Hussain, Faizan Hussain, तो ये आपका जो हल्का असर होता है उसका आपके ऊपर असर आता है, तो वो फिर इंट्यूटिवली आपके काम में घुस जाता है किसी तरह। तो वो इंट्यूटिव वो ऐसे नहीं होता कि मुझे किसी ने कहा कि जी आप रुकने आलम से इंस्पायर होके स्लोपिंग ब्रिक वॉल फिर आपने अलहमरा में डाली है, तो आई टोल्ड हिम कि मैंने बिल्कुल कॉन्शियसली बिल्कुल नहीं डाली, कोई सिमिलरिटी अगर है तो ऐसे है कि Putni Alam happened to be one of my favorite buildings. So it might be in my subconscious somewhere, and it played a role in while I was imagining the land for Alhambra. So it's an indirect sort of proliferation of factors. And इसका वो direct कोई वो जो है वो कम से कम मेरे इल्म में नहीं है कि ये कैसे आया और कहाँ से आया। It comes intuitively. Traditional forms and cliches of artists or domes or whatever. It was, the message was that you have to work according to the times of today of the speed of today and according to materials of today and advancement of technology is a gift to mankind. And you have to use all this and produce. So, in the base of my thinking was this, which there were very positive things like functionalism. Architecture is not created to make pretty looking buildings, it has to perform a function. So functional part of modernism is very, very correct and very, very strong. But at the same time, later when I kept on working, I felt, that internationalism of the same kind of buildings being built all over the world is not only monotonous, it is irrelevant to the place and maybe to the climate, the culture as well. So that factor then started changing my modernistic, like the auditorium that I showed you, has nothing to do with any tradition of any kind. But it doesn't mean that when you go to this, when you are influenced by heritage or tradition, you should not be allowed to do that at the cost of efficiency, functionalism, and the technocratic quality of the modern times of today. So the word that I used in my talk, end of the day, I come to one word, that was pluralism. That is that you can use as long as you validate it and you don't imitate it. You have to, I'm not for that traditional architecture, this brick की building में झरोखे हों और इस तरह की जो type cast चीजें पीछे से. No, you can, anything where you imitate, you're not a designer. You can emulate the spirit of how the space is used, how the air moves into these buildings like this. Maybe Pasdaman with it. It's a cool place with there's no use of glass, obviously, or air conditioning, but you can see there is a breeze moving through these areas. So that is how I think both tradition and modernist, and also it differs from project to project. Like when you see the MCB building which I have made, the bankers told me, forget about your bricks, forget about your traditional tilt. We need a modern, ultra-modern business-like bank which reflects the modern times and modernity and advancement. And please don't convince us to. So I designed a building which is totally different from buildings like Alhambra and all. And the mistake we commit, I'll give you an example. In Islamabad, there is a fire station. वहाँ आप जाएं तो वहाँ आज़ान देने को दिल करता है. उन्होंने गुंबद क्या वो कोई फारूकी साहब चेयरमैन थे किसी ज़माने में, तो उन्होंने सेक्रेटेरिएट की बिल्डिंग्स को भी इस्लामिसाइड छोटी-छोटी आर्चें लगाई और ये जो है आपका सुप्रीम कोर्ट की बिल्डिंग में इसमें भी इंट्रोड्यूस करवाए, जिसपे केंद्र तांगे इतना नाराज हुआ कि मैं पाकिस्तान के ऊपर से फ्लाई भी नहीं करना चाहता, because they modified and spoiled his design. So the message is that, first of all, the appropriateness, you have to justify whatever you do. आप 40 गुंबद बनाते हैं, आप आर्गुमेंट दें कि ये क्यों है और ये क्या कर रहे हैं. So if you can, as long as you can justify it, it's okay. But if you follow a trend, तो कभी ट्रेडिशन की तरफ चला जा रहा है ट्रेंड, या बिल्कुल ट्रेंड टू टोटल मॉडर्निटी, तो फॉर्मूलाज का, डॉगमास का और स्टाइल्स का जमाना खत्म हो गया है. It is an age of freedom which is producing a lot of nonsense and quiche as well. But at the same time, people who are using this intelligently and they can guess what they're doing. That is the path that I believe should be.
Next question.
It's a fast-moving times where things change rapidly, and this factor of how the building is going to behave after 20 years, or they are not designed for 5 years. So you have this sense of anticipation of factors of future should be in the mind of designer. But I don't know, most buildings get outdated with the technology changes, the system. Now after COVID, buildings have totally designers' attitude is changed totally. When COVID spread because of closed air-conditioned spaces. It started from planes where 400 people had to breathe the same air, and the same applies to the buildings. All the grand, the modern building was a big problem. So now the architect is thinking of creating spaces. There is movement of air in modern buildings, and the air principles of air conditioning, the traditional ones, have to be modified. And a lot of work has to be done on this, that how do we go with nature and not produce our own philosophy of closed boxes of for human behavior of work and resilience. So that awareness is creeping in, has crept in, and should be, architects should be mindful of that. Talk about landscape, and also the advantage of having the natural material like stone and wood as well. So you have a palette with good materials, and if you use it properly, you can capture the spirit of the region and the area, study something. There's not much traditional architecture, I suppose, there, but in the northern areas, places like Swat, and I work a little bit in Ziyarat in Balochistan. So you can, there's an advantage of natural materials availability. And if you are able to use it honestly and use it properly, it can create very good, very rich architecture. And it could become a language by itself. Islamabad का architecture जो है सारा का सारा ही inappropriate और sadly substandard because this place has such remarkable landscape, and इसके ऊपर we didn't deserve a city to be built in this manner that it is built. तो इसमें मैंने दो काम किए हैं यहाँ. I don't say that I've been greatly successful, but by the grace of God, there have been a fair projects. One is Serena. I'll tell you why it is designed in that manner. And the other is a club I've done in F9 Park, which is not opened up yet, but the structure has been complete for 3-4 years. So if you go to this club, you'll find that this building grows out of this land, and it belongs there, and it doesn't look as if it's been planted there. It grows because we studied the landscape and the character of the place. And in a park, first I was against making a building in the park, but then in the end, somehow the chairman had decided that I got the building like shopping malls and some auditoriums and some other buildings. We removed them. I did a bit of planning for F9. So we removed all the buildings, but one was left to be, they said that you have to make one building at least, and that is this club. So when you go and see this building, you will see that architecture is what belongs to its place to start, to the site. Then it comes to the region, and then it comes to other bigger factors maybe. But to start with, it seems to relate to the place. So the problem with Islamabad is that every building is designed with a preconceived, use of so many thousands of square feet and so much rental space and so much commercial space. So these factors then what is ignored is what are you doing to the landscape
Last
or
question.
the skyline.
Last question.
In Serena, I'll tell you the background that Serena believe in producing buildings which relate to the region. And so when you see Quetta, Serena, they try to respect the visual language from there. In Faisalabad, they looked at Punjabi architecture and building. In Islamabad, Islamabad is a characterless city.
क्या उम्दा बात है?
It's got no history, it's a recent city. So the consensus was that the traditions of Pakistan, this is the flagship hotel among Serenas, the largest hotel in Islamabad. So it was decided the language should be reflecting our traditions and our regional, and it should be one, they had a tilt towards the Islamic culture and all this. But then there's no period that I've picked up and made. So it's again a hybrid pluralist approach of producing a building, which when people come and stay here, they know that they're not staying in a Hilton or Sheraton in West. There is an impact of this area's richness of heritage. So that was the philosophy, which you can debate, you can differ also maybe. But I'm just telling you the background. So Islamabad is to me, sadly, a story of failure of how to do
Okay, thank you.
urban planning and urban planning is okay. The architecture that relates to the place.
नैयर साहब, हमारा सेशन ख़त्म होता है. आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कि आपने हमारे स्टूडेंट्स के साथ एंगेज किया और दे आस्क्ड सम pretty intelligent questions, especially pertaining to Islamabad, और आपने जहन खोल दिया बता के कि लोग इन बिल्डिंग्स की ऑ में रहते हैं, ऑ में, which is wrong because it represents nothing, very frankly, like you said. But आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कि आपने अपना कीमती वक्त दिया और इंशाल्लाह आपसे, God bless you.